Hey everyone, before we get started, just a bit of the boring stuff. The information contained on this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal situation. You should consider whether the information is appropriate to your needs and, where appropriate, seek professional advice from a financial advisor. Now on with the episode.
I would say if you're having any remote hesitations or you're not getting the answers, like the straight answers, and it's all like wishy-washy, I would just escalate. I probably wouldn't have wasted as much time as we did, because I reckon she delayed our build massively in the end, which sucks.
For sure. So moral of the story, just be a Karen and get the manager.
Exactly.
Hi, I'm Joe. I bought a house, and despite my experience in real estate, I still had a shitty experience. Apparently I'm not alone, so I've gathered the funniest and realest experts to teach Australia a better way to find their home. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. Hello, and welcome back everyone to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Joe, and today we'll be talking to my partner, actually, who's going to tell everyone about our experience when we chose to build and what we learnt from that experience and what things you need to think about before you start on the journey. Wherever you're tuning in from, grab that cup of coffee, settle into the couch, and let us take you on the home building journey. I'd like to welcome our guest, Viv. Thank you for being on the show today. It's very weird to talk to you in a formal setting, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to interview you about our experience when we built, because we went through a few highs and lows. So thank you for coming.
Of course. I'm very happy to be here. You're right, it is a bit awkward talking to you in this setting, but you're right, we went through a lot and there's just so much to share with everyone. So I'm excited to talk about our story.
We've been through and are still going through the build at the moment, for a bit of background. So it's been super exciting, but also kind of deflating at times. So if you have to score our experience of building so far on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you reckon you'd sit?
Far out. Look, I'd probably say about an 8. I mean, that averaged about a 2 at the start, but look, as the weeks and the months have gone and, getting to see our house slowly take shape, the numbers risen, thankfully. There were many ups, lots of downs, and I think that number will inevitably change depending on what week of the build you're actually asking me. But overall, good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I feel pretty similar to you. Like it has been a bit of a whirlwind. So I guess we'll talk about, we'll look back now on the experience, I guess, we had and a bit more background and the reason why you've given it that rating. So, when we were making the decision to first build, just so everyone has a better understanding of our story so far, what has it been like in a nutshell?
I mean, look, prior to signing our build contract, I actually never entertained the idea of building. I just always assumed I'd buy an established home, even a fixer-upper. I love to renovate. But I think at the time, it's almost pretty much a year ago now, the government had some really awesome grants up for grabs if you were looking to build a home. So I think that kind of swayed our decision.
Yeah.
At the time, there was about 4 weeks left until the grant was over. So there was a bit of a rush and a bit of a push to just start contacting some builders and just sort of dive into it. I think we were just casually talking about, moving into a home together, and it all just happened really quickly. Yeah, at the time when we decided to build, I think builders should definitely not have taken on any new clients. So this is November of 2020. As we know, in 2021, the building industry was massively impacted by COVID.
Massively.
Yeah, and the home builder grant. So I think builders were really overwhelmed with work this year. And unfortunately, we felt the result of that.
Yeah, and it was definitely a weird time, making that decision. It was funny because when I think back now, we talked about moving in together and you sort of think, oh yeah, we'll move in a couple of months. And then we decided to build and here we are over a year later, we're still not living together and so much has happened.
Exactly. I mean, we didn't start for a good 6 months after our contract signing. So that was a bit deflating, especially because, we thought we'd be spending my 30th birthday in the new house. But when that rolled around, we'd only just had a slab. Definitely not what we initially expected or planned for, but we're slowly getting there, nearly done.
Look, we're going to have your 30 plus one next year.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Hopefully
can't
in
wait.
the house.
Yes, hopefully in the house. No guarantees.
Far out. And like, in terms of experience with like our sales rep and stuff like that at the start, I know that from my perspective, I didn't like that experience at all. I wish we had done something a little bit sooner with what happened with the rep we had when we first bought.
Yes. So didn't have a very great experience with our sales rep. I won't name the company. I mean, the company itself has been so great so far. They're a big, known, trusted company. So I almost wish we had have gone with a referral when it came to choosing our sales rep. I think basically you were just, ringing around builders in the area, and we kind of just went with whoever answered the phone. So it's sort of potluck. But I think our journey as a whole would have been really positive if it wasn't for her. She just made lots of mistakes, as I'm sure you can remember, delayed us, with paperwork. And she was just generally MIA when we needed her most.
For anyone listening who's sort of having that experience, I would say if you're having any remote like hesitations or you're not getting the answers, like the straight answers, and it's all like wishy-washy, I would just escalate. I probably wouldn't have wasted as much time as we did, because I do agree with you. I reckon she delayed our build massively in the end, which sucks.
For sure. So moral of the story, just be a Karen and get the manager.
Exactly. And yeah, exactly. And at least they get the job done, right?
That's it.
And what do you reckon was one of the funniest or strangest experiences you've had on the journey so far?
Funniest or strangest? I mean, look, building is stressful. I wouldn't really term it as fun or funny. I think a lot of people can agree. But look, despite the delays and the mistakes, I mean, it can all get really overwhelming. I think a positive haven that we found was this huge community that's on Instagram where you can follow other people's journeys as they go through the same things you are. Like, I got so many ideas and inspo from these groups, so much valuable advice. So I'd say funniest experience, I loved making those funny memes of you posing through the house. So this is where we barely had any walls, but I just sort of got you to pose into little funny positions, and posting that on our Insta page was a lot of fun. Got a lot of laughs out of that one.
Look, the things you do for the people you love.
That's right. So I appreciate it.
So what is one of the biggest things that people need to consider before they make the decision to build?
I mean, look, there's a ton of things that you need to consider. I think one of the main things maybe is whatever timeline the builder gives you, especially just right before you're about to sign your contract. Take that as a grain of whatever suggested completion date they give you, add a couple months to it at the least. At the time, we didn't entirely know when builders were obligated to start the build. Was it at the time that you signed the contract? Was it after specific permits were received? We just didn't know. We had no idea.
Yeah.
So we later found out that the completion time that builders put in the contract actually starts from when they scrape your block. So they it's essentially start date. So it's not from the signing of your contract. So for us, they started on the block 6 months after we signed. Though we were advised verbally it would take maybe roughly about 1 to 2 months. So in a nutshell, I think having a realistic expectation about the building time frame is super important, especially if you don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah, definitely. We thought we were going to be in June this year.
Yeah.
We were done. And when did we officially start in the end?
I think it was end of June, start of July. So we hadn't even started yet. I know. I think cost as well. So I'd recommend adding at least 25% to the house cost. So the base home prices that they give you, so they'll give you a list. you go through your display home, and they'll tell you how much that house costs. It's a very, very base price, and things aren't included in there like site costs, aircon, extra power points, which add up, concreting for certain areas, and, costs involved when you need to make sure that the house meets energy ratings. So as an example, our home ended up costing an extra $65,000, and they're just little bits and pieces. So I don't even know where that 65K came from. We didn't, upgrade exorbitantly. But yeah, it's crazy how it all adds up. So budget for that.
65K, when you say it out loud, is a little bit like I want to scream, but
yeah.
but I won't.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, and I remember the bushfire levy, and that was like we got these big alfresco doors, like a corner alfresco, and they're awesome, and they're stacker doors. We had to cover them for bushfire, and I was like, oh my God, we have to pay that, and we had to. There was no way out of that.
Exactly.
Thinking back and talking about it, it's like, oh my God, 65,000. But anyway, I won't focus on that. I'll talk to you later about it. No.
Yeah, cool. Can't wait. Okay.
Yeah, great. Is there like anything budget-wise? Because you did a lot of work. I can't say we because I just sort of sat there and said, yeah, that looks good. But you did so much work on our budget when we were trying to add things up.
I'd probably suggest for those starting out, get those base home prices and really research the amount that each builder is charging, as it can vary quite a lot. And some builders might include things, others won't. So yeah, just really nitpick, and yeah, don't budget based on the initial home build price.
Were there any people or tools that, from your perspective, you felt helped us along the way? Like, I know not everyone has the benefit of knowing people in the industry. So what do you reckon helped you understand the process better?
Like I mentioned before, that Instagram building community was a huge asset. I mean, I got not just inspirational ideas like how we can decorate our house, but the big things, there's so much advice, things to look out for. And because it's such a scary, insane, huge thing that you're doing, you just feel like you're part of this community and you're all going through it together. So I think that social community that you have on Instagram has been a blessing.
And there's thousands of them, thousands.
There's tons. So it's so cool when you find another page that's doing the exact same, floor plan as you, and they've gone through the same thing that you have. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and then you get to see all the crap colours they picked, and you're like, I never would have painted my house blue. That's interesting.
Yeah, steer clear
good for you.
That. Yeah.
Doesn't look good as a royal blue or a bright blue colour. Awesome. But no, it's really good, that sense of community. I think we did get a lot. Well, I definitely got a lot out of that, feeling a bit better. Like going, they're delayed too. Okay, cool. We're not the only ones in that. And like with the same builder as well. It's like we're not the only ones delayed, I guess. Like knowing that there are others out there going through it.
That's right, yeah. And that's all you saw for a while there, is everyone just posting about the delay. So it sucked for us. I mean, we were like a couple of weeks out from not getting the grant, the grant that originally made us build in the first place, because you had to build within 6 months. So thankfully they extended the conditions of getting that grant. Thank God.
That was so bloody stressful.
Very stressful.
Are we going to start, or do we need to consider the fact that we're going to have to not, we don't get the grant? Like, not that we sort of, didn't have enough or anything in that sense, but it would have been a massive help, and it would have changed the way we were planning to fit out the house, like with our furniture and what we bought. Like, it would have just been such a different discussion. Would have been
heartbreaking. Yeah. So we lucked out there, thankfully.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And at the start, we took turns in doing stuff. So I did a lot of the ringing around, and then you did all the emailing. And then we sort of met in the middle and, discussed our research on what we got. Yeah. Like, that was completely overwhelming, I found, like the phone calls.
For sure. I mean, yeah, you're the ball buster you like to call. Yeah. I'm text or email. I like everything in writing. So I think we work really well. We can, bust enough balls to get. Yeah. But I was going to say as well, the other amazing, tool that we had was our mortgage broker. I mean, she was a godsend. If it wasn't for her, I think it would have been a much more stressful time. Yeah. So I think, getting on top of a really good mortgage broker, whether that's you go through a referral or, you read tons of reviews, because they do all the nitty gritty, the finance, the mortgaging. So you want to make sure that you choose someone that knows what they're doing.
She was so helpful because she answered all our questions. Like anytime I rung her, because, I ring for questions.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that probably Viv sometimes asks the same questions in an email. And then I go, no, you're not getting a quick response. I want an answer now. I'm going to ring. Like,
yep.
Don't ring. No, I'm ringing. Yeah, ruthless. I need to know. I'm stressed out. So having someone that understands that stress of how big this decision is and like all the things you don't get, she was awesome. Like I really rated her. And like even it was so just like a really quick side story because it was pretty funny. So we received a package the other day at my parents' house, and it was this package like addressed to someone random. Like it just said to, I don't even remember, like Chloe and Reese. And I'm like, what is that? And then we were desperate to open it, and Viv was very desperate that she messaged the number on the package to find out who owned the package and why they haven't claimed it, because it had our address, just different names. Anyway, comes round, it actually turned out it was for us, and they'd sent us an awesome chopping block for like a housewarming gift for our coming close to moving in. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it's like the little finishing touches when you finish business with a company. I think, that was awesome.
And like, I'd definitely go through her again, like for next time.
100%. I agree.
So going through this process, a lot of people have to make, sacrifices as you normally do when you're trying to save and stuff like that. Do you feel like you had to make any sacrifices like through the process, like before we got to that point where we moved in? Built?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I'd been renting for a few years prior to us signing our contracts. Once we were sort of given the indication that we'd be starting soon, or we thought we would be, I made the decision to, end my lease, move back to mum's while the construction took place. I think I just sort of assumed we would have to pay both rent and a mortgage at the same time. I just thought it would make more sense to move back home and save that extra bit of rent money. Then again, we were also under the impression that the house would be done in about 6 months, but about a year back at mum's. But no, look, don't get me wrong, it's, we're extremely lucky and fortunate to be able to move back home while we build. Fully understand that a lot of people don't have that luxury. I just definitely miss my privacy, and it just makes me just all that more excited to move into our home. I just can't wait. But yeah, I didn't realize as well how virtually little we pay back on the mortgage while the house is still in construction phase. So, I mean, realistically, I could have stayed at my rental until the house was ready. Then again, on the flip side, I wouldn't have saved as much money as I would have if I, didn't move back to mum. So either way, I think my piece of advice is if you're currently renting, don't be too concerned about having to pay the rent plus the construction loan at the same time. Of course, everyone's situation is different, but I think for us, we could have comfortably, been able to continue to rent and build at the same time. And I wish I had known that at the start.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part with this whole process. You just don't know. Like you go through it and then you reflect back and go, man, whenever we build it, like if we do it again one day, we know all these things are coming up.
That's right.
And it sort of makes you like experienced. Whereas when you go in for the first time, you just sort of follow what everyone's telling you to do. And it's overwhelming. Like you get so much advice. That's how I felt at times anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
And what would be your top pros and cons to building?
The biggest pro for me is warranty and the peace of mind that you get. So you may or may not know this about me, Jo, but I'm a massive stress head by nature.
What?
I know.
Are you joking?
I worry about things.
You've never been stressed in the time I've known you.
I know,
like,
it's shocking.
Cool as a cucumber.
Yeah, thought I'd put that out there. But look, with building, just knowing that if anything goes wrong with the house, like if there's a massive plumbing issue or an electrical fault, it's all covered by the builder. It's just such a sense of relief for me. As you know, a lot of bad experiences in the past with like used cars. So now I'll only buy new, purely for the warranty benefits. So I'll pay that extra just to have that peace of mind.
Yeah.
But which is weird though, like just to throw it in there, I had no idea with building warranties. I thought it was like a 30-year structural warranty. I thought that was normal knowledge, but anyway, it's like 6, maximum 7 years that they put a warranty on your house. It's crazy.
Oh,
Crazy
definitely. Oh, it's nuts. And like 30 years, yeah, you'd think the lifetime of the house being built, like being alive, like not
That's
a lifetime,
right.
but a very decent portion of it. So
Yeah.
what would be your second pro if you had one?
I guess the whole journey of creating a home, you can add like your little or big touches to the house, and it's just so much fun to truly make something yours, and then you get to see it come to life week after week. And even though it's an overwhelming process at times, it's extremely rewarding. You know, when you see something drawn, you've got your drawn plans down on paper, and then when you actually see it, you know, physically in front of you and you get to walk through the house, it's very cool, very surreal.
When we had a slab, I never thought I'd be so excited to see a slab of concrete in my life.
Right.
And
that was a good day.
Yeah, and like when you think back to when, like especially my parents when they were, you know, building this house, I used to hate coming to this house. I used to hate it. They dragged me along, and I'm like, I'm so bored. They're like, this is going to be your room, and I'm like, doesn't look like a room. Don't care. And like now I'm going through it, and I'm like, does anyone want to come see our slab? We have concrete. Mum, would you like to come see our concrete? And it's like, yeah, like she's excited for us because she's gone through it. Anyway. I think if we had kids, they'd be like, absolutely not, but okay.
Exactly. That's okay. That's all right. They don't get it.
No, they don't. That's okay. They're not meant to yet. One day. What would be your third pro if you had one?
Stamp duty savings. So this is something I had no idea about. If you buy a block of land and then you build on it, so you only pay the stamp duty on the land and not the entire house price. So you could essentially cut your stamp duty by half. You know, that's like thousands of dollars you would save. So it's definitely one of the biggest pros when it comes to build versus buy, is you save a shit ton on stamp duty if you build. I mean, for us specifically, we, you know, fortunately had our stamp duty waived since it was our first home and it was part of a, you know, government support. But it's just a good piece of knowledge to know that, especially for any future home purchases or builds.
Yeah, and you're not getting the grant too, like if they're not in that position. So definitely. And if you had any, what's one of the cons, do you reckon?
Probably the time that it takes. Yeah, I think you need to invest a lot of time, you know, not only fine-tuning the house plans, going over it, making sure that everything is exactly how you want it and nothing's been left out, you know, chasing up, you know, your building if there's anything that's gone wrong. I guess when you buy established, you probably have a maximum 3-month settlement, and then after that you're in your new home. So with building, especially in these now very difficult times with COVID, the time it takes to build is becoming longer and longer. You just need to have a lot of patience.
And I think when you said like the fine tuning of the house plan, everything throughout this process, like you know where every light is, you know where the light switches are, you know where the vents are. I didn't even know what a vent looked like. And I remember one day, like you sent me, not sent me down, but like, you know, I live closer to the property and I said, I'll go down there. What do you need me to check out? And you were like, can you just check that the vents are where they're meant to be? Like with all this is when it was just tubing and crap, you know, like nothing was in the ceiling where I could point to, that's a vent. No, couldn't do that. So I walked in and I'm taking photos. I remember ringing you and I'm like, what am I looking for? I have no idea what I'm doing. And you were like, does it look like this? And I'm like, nah, can't see it. And I just said, I don't think it's there. And you're like, okay, you're going to have to call the site supervisor. I'm like, right. So I did that the next day, and then when we went on the weekend, because the site supervisor was like, "No, it's there," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I told you, and you're like, "Well, you didn't see it, so And I've gone, "All right." So we went down on the weekend. You're like, "This is what I was talking about," and it was there.
Oh, Joe. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, well, I gave it a red hot crack.
Yeah, you did.
I've learnt so much now. I know exactly what to look out for. So.
Exactly, and that's what this whole journey is. We're going to be so prepared for our next house, I reckon.
Oh, 100%. And like following the above, what would you say the best part of building so far is?
Look, I reckon just seeing it take shape every week, especially because, I mean, at the start we had that good 6 months period where our block was just this empty piece of dirt. So we were so eager to have the build start. I think when it finally did, it was just so exciting watching it become a home. Every week there'd be a new development if we were lucky, and having simple things like oh my god, the doors are in, or the cornices are installed. Yeah, very exciting times.
The little things like the cornices, the architraves. It's like what?
But it's you have something to look forward to every week, and that's what I like about building.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That's been the best part, the highlight, and you almost forget about all the crap that you go through at the start. It's just when you start reflecting on it like we are now, you're like, oh man, that was so frustrating. Oh shit, I forgot about that. Opposite question now. What do you reckon was the worst part of building so far?
I guess so, having to trust others with your home. I think no one loves your home the way that you do. So to you, it's your pride and joy, but to others, like your tradies or your sales reps, you're just another customer in the queue. So I guess when like workmanship isn't up to standard, or your sales rep takes ages to get back to you, for sure can be really deflating.
Yeah.
It feels like, at times you have to take on this role of site supervisor and really take the time to overlook every single space of the home. Like you mentioned before, I know exactly where every single PowerPoint is and what dimensions of every single thing, because I've looked over our plans at least 375 times. But yeah, so I mean, and having as well your uncle helping us. So he's a building inspector by trade. So we were so lucky, such a godsend to know, that we have someone that we can trust to overlook the build. So many people, of course, gave us the advice. They told us invest in a building inspector. And I think for sure, if we didn't have your uncle, we most definitely would have paid to have that service.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, he came with us to like all our meetings to make sure that everything was being signed off on correctly, and like we weren't being sort of, I guess, dodged into some things. And he saved us like, a fair few like chunks of money, I guess, if you want to put it that way. We had a situation where, we were told we had downlights, and then what did she do? Like, so the rep in there, when we put in our PowerPoints, our downlights, we put them like we told her where we wanted them. And then when we came to that massive, the head honcho of the building company, he said to me, "Oh, did you want all these PowerPoints in the ceiling in every room?" Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, like just stuff like that, you just got to be really careful. And like when you're excited, if you're like me, I feel like this is why our dynamic works. I'm excitable. I agree I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, cool. Yeah, a bit weird that we have double PowerPoints on the ceiling, but we'll take it. But you need to have that level-headed person going, can we just check? So I'm glad you did, because if I was doing it by myself, I would have moved into a house with a shitload of, PowerPoints in the roof, some light switches on the floor or something, and I would have been pretty upset and been able to do nothing about it. So if someone out there is tuning in and thinking that they might not have, the right builder for them, what would you say the red flags of a bad builder would be?
Well, I reckon your first point of call is to read their reviews. So we almost went with another builder at the very start of our journey. They offered, a great deal, an even better timeline for us. But after we read, a few reviews on them, we knew they weren't the right. And we actually have a close mutual friend of ours who ended up going with that company. They started their journey a few months after us, and they're already in their finished home now. So we're super jealous of that. But then again, the journey's been hell for them. So even though they're in sooner, I think their costs might have been lower. The quality of the work and the communication for them, it was just awful, an awful experience.
Yeah,
so I think
definitely.
Very important to go with the quality builder. We have a lot of confidence in the quality of our home and the company that we've gone with. Though there's been a lot of delays, I think it's primarily due to the fact that the builders didn't want to rush and nut out the jobs. So they wanted to make sure that the product that they were actually delivering to us was of their high standards. So I'm super grateful for that, even though it was frustrating. I think it's worth it in the end. It's a long investment. It's a huge purchase. You'd want to make sure that it's done to standard.
And what would be like another red flag, so to speak?
Another red flag. So I'm thinking about our sales rep, and I'd say keep an eye on fluffing. So sales reps in all industries do this. They promise one thing, but when it comes time to put it on paper, pop it in your contract, they're not able to do it. I remember early on, like you and I, we were walking through a display home, the one that we had chosen, and our sales rep, right before we signed our final contract, she'd point here and point there and told us that certain things were included. And I swear, I think we both remember it, that she told us the concrete was included in the al fresco, right? She did. I fully agree. And, that there'd be these little fancy square set openings in the hallway. I mean, we would ask her, is this included? And she'd just hit you back with a solid, yep. Not, I'm not sure, let me just double check. It's just, she just had so much conviction. But yes, we come to find out when it comes to those points of the build, we found out they weren't included. And of course, if it's not in the contract, we can't, quote unquote, should have known.
Yep.
So yeah, my piece of advice is don't take as gospel what your sales rep says, but rather what they put in writing into the contract, and make sure every little thing is written into your contract, as that's the only thing that holds up. If you've got emails, you've got text messages, none of that holds any weight other than that final contract that you sign.
You and I both went over the contract separately together, and then my uncle did the same thing for us. He went over the contract, told us what was missing, or you've got to have this in writing. So I feel like if we hadn't have done that and we just accepted it as it was initially, we would have been so disappointed too. So yeah, you do have to keep an eye on what's actually written in the contract, because they won't do it.
Exactly.
And I guess if we wrap up the last question here, what would be your best advice to someone who's trying to make this decision right now? They're on that point of, do I build or do I just say stuff it, I establish?
Look, with the theme of the podcast, I think definitely join that Instagram building community that's available on social media. I mean, there's, tons of advice, heaps of people willing to help and just, really guide you through it and answer any questions you have, from small things like, should I go with the grey tile? I remember I went through hours of deep diving. We'd chosen a tile, and the next day I'd completely regretted it. I don't know why. We loved it in the showroom. So just be wary. You might overthink things, but I think just in general, don't get too overwhelmed by the process. Just make sure that you've got some good, reliable contacts. I think like a decent mortgage broker, a quality builder, and just make sure you check reviews, make sure they're right for you. These people guide you through a pretty big part of your life. I mean, you're building a home, it's huge. So yeah. Look, despite some pretty negative and stressful experiences during our build, I honestly would say that I would build again, which absolutely shocks me because there's been some shocker. But I think you learn a lot with your first build, and that you just can't wait to modify your plans and create like an even better home for next time. I can't believe we're not even finished. I'm already thinking about our new and next build.
Oh, here we go. But no, I feel the same. 100% feel the same. Like, I think you have to just go through it and just get advice from anyone who's like willing to listen to you or give you 10 minutes to say, hey, this is a good tip. Because I feel like a lot of the tips we learnt were from like friends and like family members going, oh, watch out for this. Like we had some mates that had like rock on their property when they did their site inspection. That was the other thing we were so stressed about was the site costs. Like,
Yes. I was going to say we had to sign our contracts before we knew what our site costs were, which wasn't the normal process. And you probably shouldn't do that because though they gave us an estimate, there's no real knowing of what the site costs will be until you actually get in there. So make sure you've got your site costs either fixed if you can. Not we couldn't get fixed, but some companies offer that, and that can be a real benefit.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Viv, it's been so good having you here and hearing your experiences that we had together. I think it was really cool. So I think you've summed it up pretty perfectly in that our listeners have learned a lot today. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I mean, I could talk about this topic for hours. There's just so much to cover. So
of course,
it wasn't as awkward as I thought it would be.
No, I didn't think it was awkward. Look, to summarise, I guess, make sure you check your reviews on these building companies and that they're trusted people who you do want to go with and that they are the right fit for you. You know, sales reps, don't take your chances. Read your contract, understand what you're signing up for and make sure you've got a bit of support behind you and, understanding like having a good mortgage broker to support you. There's a lot of good points here. So what I'll do is I'll put everything on the website so you guys can check it out and read our story and how our journey went. But I just want to thank you once again, Beauty. It's been great to have you here and thanks to our listeners for tuning in. I hope this gives you something to think about before you enter the market. So for the rest of this podcast, we're going to discuss the buying established route. So stay tuned as we talk to experts and other home buyers that will hopefully help you make an informed decision when you're buying your first home. Hope you've had a great week and we'll see you back here next time on the No BS Real Estate Podcast. Have a good one, guys. Now it's time for our weekly contributor, Purple Pingers, with the latest No BS story.
Thanks for that, Joe. Most of your listeners will probably know that the median price for a house in Sydney is $1.4 million. So you'd think that something for $1 million, a 4-hour drive south of Sydney would be pretty nice. And you'd be absolutely fucking dead wrong. I'd love to introduce you to 11 Elizabeth Drive, Bruley, New South Wales, where the closest Woolies is in Maruya, and there's not a single wall in the house that isn't covered in nicotine. It's a 2-bedroom house with approximately half of its tiles still stuck to the wall, and the rest seem to have been used to scrape chunks out of the house and the furniture. Anyways, if you've got a spare $1 million to spend, I'd probably just eat it or something, I don't know. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. Did you know we're building a home buyers community to give Australians a better way to find their humble abode? Sign up now and we'll send your first home buyers checklist straight to your inbox by visiting www.abode.com.au so you can say buying your home was the easiest thing you've ever done. Thanks for listening.